All right, put your headphones on, Bernie. We're going to start talking to you. We're going to start having a real talking to.
Wait a minute. Why won't it work?
Here.
This is part of the podcast.
Yeah, we should. There you go.
Now stick it straight up your...
Welcome to the Weekends with Bernie podcast. I'm Tom Everett Scott, taking you on a father and son journey through a season of fantasy football. Bernie Gallagher is a retired sports reporter and bartender, teaming up with his son, Jason, a composer in Los Angeles. They will attempt to conquer the league I created. They will have to overcome injuries, trash talk, heartbreaking loss, and that's just between the two of them. Join us as we talk fathers and football on Weekends with Bernie. Welcome to Weekends with Bernie, and I'm just going to start off by asking Bernie, how are you, and what have you done today so far?
I'm fine. I'm not too bad. I'm sitting in an unusual chair here, like a throne.
I moved the comfy leather chair in the middle for you. Do you like it?
It's not like the thrones I'm used to.
What throne?
Oh, God.
Are you talking about the bathroom?
The toilet?
That's because there's no toilet paper here. That's why.
Oh, that's the only difference.
On the last episode, you were really like sitting low in there, and our guest James Roday, after we were done, we were texting, and he said, "I love the way that Bernie sits so low." And I said, "What's scary is that's how he drives."
That's the Gallagher way, Tom. You know that.
I do.
We recline and we relax.
Yes, and now my son, who has that Gallagher blood, is whenever he sits in my car, the seat is just like he had been at the dentist.
Yeah, we can get our hair cut and drive at the same time.
So we're talking about the podcast has reached a point now where you guys have lost your number one pick for a week.
Saquon's down. Let's just back up just a hair though, and mention that we are 2-0 and undefeated.
I saw
one
that.
of the best records in the league.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Yeah, you guys are 2-0. I think you're the only you're one of two 2-0 teams, maybe
three.
maybe three.
That's three.
You have like 200 over 250 points total so far.
Yeah, we
not too bad. In the middle of the pack.
We haven't scored a lot of points, but we scored more than our opponent.
Yeah, enough.
Right. Yeah. Your first round draft pick, Saquon Barkley, much discussed on this show, is out with an ankle injury.
Terrible last minute play. Silly, if I have to say so myself. Even though it was in the quest for the amazing victory there in Arizona at the Arizona game, but
huge comeback.
What a bummer to lose him. And we have some weak running back options.
Okay, well let's just talk about
that
for a second. I was taking a look at this. The waivers ran on Tuesday night, and when you woke up on Wednesday morning and saw that you missed out on any of the running backs, Jerome Ford, Matt Breida, what did you?
I pulled our claim on Ford. I didn't go for him. I didn't even put a claim in.
I saw $11.
Okay. I pulled it back to $11, which I knew it wasn't going to work. And
the person who got Ford almost blew his entire.
Yeah, 80% of his stack.
Right. So we have a 200 fab budget, and he's Scott Collins spent what?
No, it was Palmer. He spent
162. 162. So Greg Palmer spent 162 of his fab budget on Jerome Ford, who might be supplanted by Kareem Hunt, who they just signed.
Correct.
That's right.
Is that how you looked at it?
I did fear Kareem Hunt. Who I love.
You love Kareem Hunt.
I wish I had him. I saw Tim take him in the draft when he was a free agent. I kind of was jealous of that move. I did fear Kareem Hunt. I thought it was a little bit of maybe a unicorn week for Ford, and he was going to be a letdown. Plus, we have some backups. We have Najee Harris, who I think could still turn his season around.
So he's now your RB1.
He's my RB1, correct. We have Kenneth Gainwell, who probably will play, has been practicing according to our guest today.
Yes, we're recording this after we talk to our guest.
I'm going to predict that she says something about Gainwell practicing. And who else, Dad? Who else do we have?
That's all we have.
Oh, we have Justice Hill, who was out. So
right, he's out too.
That was the big pickup last week. Did you spend a lot of fab on him last week?
Not much, a couple bucks. I thought he was a good option because he might, scalp a touchdown here.
But he's out too.
He's out.
Yeah.
So with Gainwell being your best option as a second running back and not going until Monday night, you might have to play it safe. And
I did look up, but there is one or two, and I can't remember who is playing also on Monday night.
Some running backs that we can have an
There's
option.
at least one.
Okay, so you got the Rams are playing that night, and then behind Kyron Williams. There might be somebody there.
Yeah.
The Bengals are playing them, and I think
behind
Mixon, Travion Williams, and I don't know if Chris Evans is back yet. Yeah, it's not great, right?
Right.
Yeah, the other option was to trade for a running back, but running backs are so slim right now. I'm not sure we're going to get anybody. And also, nobody likes to trade.
So. Or you could pick up Hilary. What's his name?
Go for it. Try it.
Hilaire.
What's the full name?
I don't remember.
Come on.
Clyde.
His first, he plays for the Chiefs.
Okay, Clyde Edwards-Hilaire.
Hilaire. Totes Hilaire.
And, they're playing on Sunday, but you could just, set him aside in case.
All right.
Great. So we're going to talk to our amazing guest, Liz Losa from ESPN is going to join us, and you guys will get a chance to ask a real professional analyst what to do with your team.
Play the music and bring her in here.
Do it! Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Our favorite ESPN analyst, Liz Losa. Hi, Liz.
I thought you were going to say your favorite fantasy analyst all together. And I was going to
I'll just be honest. I'm really bad at this.
We'll just take it again. 1, 2. No, we can't. We can't go backward. Only forward.
Only forward.
You are the only analyst.
Yes.
That we care about.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So Liz, first of all, thanks for doing this. This is really an honor. And how have you been? What have you been up to? What's going on?
Well, it's, almost 3 weeks into the NFL season. So I haven't really done a whole lot. It's been really boring. There are no running backs that are hurt. And
There's no
the alerts on my phone have been very mundane.
Yeah. So
no running backs have been hurt.
I think that was sarcasm, Bernie.
Sarcasm.
Yeah. So where did you get your start there? You, Liz, you started out. I think I saw that I know you went to Brown because you told me you went to Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And did you co-manage a league with someone, and that's how you got into fantasy?
Kind of, sort of, maybe. So like you, Tom, I started as an actor in Los Angeles, but unlike you, I was not successful at it.
Well, do you have a SAG card?
I do have a SAG card.
Are you going to
But
go pick it with me?
don't get me out on the picket line right now. That is not. Do not trap me.
Okay.
So yes, I do have a SAG card, and I, guest stars and blah blah blah. But there was a certain point that I was like, hey, I don't think it's great to make $30,000 a year, even though all of my peers are astounded at that amount of money.
Yep.
And so I had been in a fantasy league with this guy.
Uh-huh.
And
is this guy still in your life?
He is.
Okay.
He asked me to co-manage this team with him. And so I was the girlfriend, and I was co-managing the team, and I ended up knowing more than he did and helped him co-manage a team to a Super Bowl victory.
Wow.
There happened to be an opening in that same league the following year, and I advocated for myself and took it. And then all of the guys were like, oh, it's beginner's luck. There's no way. And I won it again. And then a third year, I three-peated and won it.
A star is born.
3. Well, some might say 2.5 because I co-managed that.
No,
first.
we know what happened that first year. We know what happened.
It's a full
it was
trophy.
All you. Oh my gosh, 3 in a row.
So 3 in a row, and the gentleman that I had been co-managing with and now owned as the winner of the league 2 more times after that co-managing experience, and who was also my boyfriend at the time. We were watching Yahoo's Fantasy Football Live before I set my lineup, and I said to him, like, why I should be on this show. Why am I chasing, 24 and Monk and all this nonsense? Like, I should be on this show. And he shrugged his shoulders. And I think he had pizza crust hanging out of his mouth. I don't know, you should start a blog. Yeah, right.
It's a good image.
And I started a blog, and it was called thefantasyfootballgirl.com. And I took everything that I had learned working in entertainment and put myself on a disciplined content schedule. We weren't called content creators then. We were just called aspiring bloggers. Mm-hmm. And
vlogger? Were you doing any video?
It was all video,
I was doing vlog. Yeah, I was doing. Twice a week I had a vlog, and I started a podcast. Then I did written content as well. I had a whole schedule for myself Monday through Sunday, of what was going to go on. I taught myself how to read off of a teleprompter and write my own copy. And then
Amazing.
I got on Twitter and engaged with people and did a couple of Sirius
That's how you do
XM hits, and it just sort of snowballed. And
Yeah.
now
So
I work for ESPN.
fantasyfootballgirl.com, right? Fantasy Football Girl. That's amazing. And then
What was
Yahoo.
what was the timeline like from when you started that till now? To how long are we talking until you get on ESPN?
So the
Couple years?
fantasyfootballgirl.com was a couple of years, because I was also like acting at the same time and doing voiceover. And, when those Pier 1 checks come in, woo, those were better than 30 grand a year back in the day.
Baby.
Heck yeah. I think they've gone under since, but I took their money. And so I was kind of juggling.
Can you give us a little Pier 1?
Yeah, like
voiceover?
what would you,
what was
you know,
I don't remember
rattan
the
furniture.
tagline. There was a tagline where
10% off.
beauty is affordable, where fashion is affordable,
Ooh,
with something like that.
That sounds real.
Thanks.
Whoa.
I did it.
Good
I did it for you,
stuff.
right? So at a
Pure
certain
One
point,
has always been a thing for me.
do you like the smell of the wicker?
I go in there and
There's
it's
the
just
wicker.
like coming home, to the rattan.
And big
Yeah.
candles.
Mhm.
You
Anyway,
strike
sorry.
me, Tom, as like a guy who goes to Bali on some sorts of retreats, which tracks.
I wish. Oh my gosh. I think I only travel for work mostly. Like I wait for like a job on location. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go see a new place.
Kind of
My
like-
family.
Very
They
Family's
do.
bummed
They do
about
send
that.
you in first class, because I've seen you on a flight.
That's
in
right.
First class.
Where? That's
You
right,
run into each other in an airplane?
We did. We were on the same flight.
Aw.
And I said, "Oh, Liz, are you going to be in? No, you're going. Oh, you're going too far back."
She
Oh.
went to the coach.
He was like, "Bye." Oh, those curtains closed.
I think I was on my way to Wilmington, and you were on your way to a wedding. Is that right?
In Asheville. Yeah.
Asheville. I love Asheville. That's a
It's
good
great.
Cozied up with your Pier 1 blanket in the first class.
Wait. So now you're on
Okay.
ESPN. Congratulations. That's
Thank
so huge. And over the last 2 years, you and I have been doing the Scott Fish Bowl, and I believe, right, 2 years ago is when you didn't break the news about your new gig, even though you knew.
It was in the works. Well, you and I were driving down with Garrett Lerner, our mutual friend.
And explain what that is. Sorry, guys, to digress.
Okay.
What's Scott Fish Bowl and how do you know each other?
Right. Scott Fish. Did he start being as an analyst? Is that where Scott started?
I think he started as an enthusiast in many ways. Like, he created tournaments, and his the first Scott Fish Bowl was in 2013. So it's now 10 years deep. It's got to be more than that, right?
No. It's more than 10, because I think my first year was 10, and that was the first year of COVID. So I think we're on maybe 13 now. Maybe he started in
COVID was in
2010.
2020, friend.
Yes, right. So we're on. So that was
the
Scott
10-year
Fish Bowl
anniversary.
10 was in 2020.
2020.
Sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I've been in it since the beginning, but I don't remember, because my son was born somewhere in there. And I remember being like, am I actually going to do this league? Like, I just had a kid like a week ago, my first one.
And you did it.
And I did it. And that kid is 10 now. So that's why I'm trying to
Wow.
figure out the math. Regardless, nobody needs to know about my reproductive history, especially now.
We're writing it all down. We'll go. We'll review it
That's
later.
a separate vlog.
Yes. On a very strict content schedule as well.
Child's fantasy football, our children fantasy football podcast. Yeah,
That's right.
So actually we first met kind of through, I was doing a show at Yahoo Fantasy, which is where I worked in between the Fantasy Football Girl and
Yes.
ESPN. I was there for 7 years, and I started a show with Austin Eckler, which is still at Yahoo Fantasy now. but I
Eckler's
was
Edge.
first. Called Eckler's Edge, yes.
And
I
you're
did
not on Eckler's Edge anymore.
No, because I work for a bigger company now.
Yeah. All right, cool.
So Austin and I started this show together, and we would have guests on, and I've seen you in the fantasy space, in the celebrity fantasy space. And so I think Chris Harris or Casey Kasem, I'm not sure which.
Or Denny Carter.
Or Denny.
I think,
Somebody
yeah.
connected us, and I asked you to be on Eckler's Edge.
Yes.
And this is funny. I think so, at least. After the episode, so we would have like Travis Kelce was on the show, Dawson Knox was on the show, Justin Herbert was on the show. No big deal. Austin, after we finished our episode, he was like, "Are you done blushing, Liz?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like,
right.
all these all these like swole athletes come on and you're super profesh, but like this dad comes on and you can't stop giggling. And I was
Not
like,
swole.
Austin Eckler called you a dad.
Not
I
swole.
love that.
Dad.
All right.
I love that. God,
I'll take it.
I loved Austin Eckler before. Now
No.
even more.
I'll take that all day. Liz blushing and Eckler calling me a not swole dad.
yeah.
And my favorite part of that, okay, that's now my favorite part. Before that, my favorite part was how you guys established that I was in 12 fantasy leagues and that Austin was on none of them.
Oh yeah.
Right. You were like, hey, how many of those leagues is
12
Austin on?
leagues.
And I was like, oh God, none. And then that was the week. And we texted each other about this.
Mhm.
He went off for 4 touchdowns. And I think I had something to do with that. I think he was trying to say,
And like you got beat by him that week on
Tom
some
Everett
team, I'm sure.
oh, you beat
You
me.
did.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was all kinds of
It was like my
awful.
best team. Yeah, of course. Eckler.
Yes. Yeah. No. And I mean, I think Austin Eckler was like Tom Everett Scott should have me on his team, and I'm going to show him why.
Well,
That
sure.
is a good transition to the fact that my dad and I have a fantasy team this year. Weekends with Bernie, it's called, after the podcast, or the podcast is named after the team. I'm not sure, but we had a team together when I was maybe like 14 years old in the 90s, and now we're teammates again many years later. And we did pass up on Austin Eckler at number 4 in lieu of Saquon Barkley because we're homers and we're Giants fans.
What do you think of that, Liz? With the 4th pick this year, Saquon over Austin.
I mean, it's a little bit of a reach, and my man's
questionable.
not playing tonight. So
No, he is
Mhm.
not. No, he's not. But last week we looked smart, didn't we? Like,
No, you
For a
didn't
minute.
listen to me. You didn't listen to me.
see, here it is. What do you mean? We talked about this.
who did you
Yeah.
want to draft, Bernie? Who were you thinking about?
Well, if Eckler was there, I would have taken him.
Sure.
Mixon was another one I liked.
I mean, that's a little early for me. You liked
Yeah.
him later in the draft. He keeps
Yeah,
talking about
that's
Mixon.
true.
Yeah, all right. But, we had a little disagreement. I wanted to go Saquon just because we're Giants fans. I thought it might be a good story. The Giants fans take Saquon. It turns out to be a top 3 running back. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, you're right. You
It
were
was
looking
a-
sort of smart there for a second. We had JJ Zacharyson on here, and he also told them to take Austin Eckler with that pick.
Yeah, I also think it's adorable that you think Giants fans taking a giant early is a good story and not at all been told before.
It was on a podcast? No, I'm
Good
sure
point.
it has. Yeah. All right. Well, look, we wanted the Hollywood ending. We wanted it to be exciting. And the problem with Bernie is he doesn't like to watch Red Zone. He just likes to watch Giants games. So we thought we'd give him some extra, watching.
Yeah, well, that's
time.
why I retired from owning my own.
He
team.
tried to retire
He
from
tried.
this league at his his doctor told him to, and then we said no.
My doctor. Well, that was a
We pulled him back.
different
in.
story. Yeah.
We'll get the doctor on here, and we'll get his version.
I was jinxed so many years. Every time my top 2 players would be on IR after the second week.
Oh, welcome
Yeah.
back. Here we are.
Yeah, and now here I am again. you know.
So they're going into tonight without Saquon. They also whiffed on the waiver wire, like picking up Breida or even Jerome Ford. I think you bid too low on him.
Correct.
So they need some advice on what to do with their running backs.
Yeah, we have other running backs on our team include Justice Hill, who I believe is out this.
He's hurt
Week.
too.
Right.
Najee
Mhm.
Harris.
Oh, he sucks.
He is not doing
Right.
great.
Put it lightly.
But he has a great matchup this week. Can we be hopeful and maybe start him with some hopes and maybe take Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Monday night and as some sort of backup?
Well, the problem is our other back is Gainwell.
Gainwell.
Gainwell. We have Gainwell
and
as well.
He may be hurt.
Yeah.
I do believe Gainwell was back in practice. I think
Oh, he
I
was?
just
like
looked
that.
through injury reports. The question with Gainwell is less about his health and more about how much of the RBBC will be committed to him after DeAndre Swift went ham last Thursday.
Right.
My
So-
goodness, yeah.
The division of labor is at least the first question. Not that the health
right.
isn't a question with Gainwell. You also mentioned, who is the other guy? Breida. He is not an explosive rusher. The matchup is really, really tough. Brightwell's going to be in the
Jerome
mix. I
Ford.
don't-
They missed on.
Yeah.
Well, Jerome Ford, though, I still expect Jerome Ford to lead the backfield ahead of Kareem Hunt, but Hunt was obvious. And I say that because even though Hunt was a Brown, his usage last year was not particularly robust, and they did like give him the axe, right? So that tells us something. But I think we can all just know moving forward that most of these committees are going to be committees. Like there's not going to be a singular backfield outside of maybe like Tennessee's or New York's. Even Los Angeles now, I have to imagine with like Eckler hurting his ankle and Josh Kelly being part of the mix, there's a load management question that's involved here. Najee Harris was that guy. I have a ton of Najee Harris shares because I was like, well, it's volume, right? Like, I don't care if he's inefficient. There's volume. The offensive line was improved. But I did not anticipate Jaylen Warren to have more yards on fewer total touches because of his presence in the passing game.
Yeah.
I mean, Najee just looks old. I mean, not old, but just looks slow out there. Doesn't he look slow out there? He just
I don't think
look like he was with
properly, to be honest. Like he's a power runner and he should probably be used more effectively, but he's also a solid pass catcher and there definitely seems to be a reluctance to using him in that capacity. But there is, I'm going to start him. I just think he's like an RB25, like on that RB2, RB3 bubble, and Warren is going to stay like an RB3 in that top 30 to 33 range.
Right. I mean, I think our best hopes is start Najee, he gets some points, and Gainwell plays and gets his share at least with Swift coming on as he did.
Yeah, I think that's a sound strategy given what you have.
What about that? Now there's 2 Monday night games, right?
Right.
And you could, if Gainwell doesn't play.
Hilaire is still is available.
And he plays on Monday night.
In our league.
He plays on Monday
That's like our only backup Monday night
yeah.
if we like go all the way there with Gainwell.
Does Hilaire really have the Monday night game? Hilaire's not playing on Monday night. He's got the Bears.
Yeah.
At Kansas
wait a minute.
City. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
This is the problem with the Bernie podcast. That we provide misinformation.
The Rams are at Cincinnati for the other Monday night game.
Right.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to scramble somewhere around.
Okay.
there.
Well, let's talk about those backfields. I mean, is there anybody that you can pick up there that you could slide in if you get news that Gainwell's out?
I think, as Jason mentioned before, our best bet is to try to find somebody for a trade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of receivers.
We have a lot of good receivers, so that is a bonus.
Try to find somebody who wants to give up a back.
Yeah.
Well, that's always a challenge in a home league.
Who are you trading for right now, Liz? Who are you looking to buy low or?
Jahan Dotson, I think this week is going to be the week that he finally breaks out. He's been underperforming relative to his ADP and expectations, but I believe the Commanders are playing the Bills, so it's a tough matchup, but that also means that Terry McLaurin's probably going to draw Tre'Davious White, and I think that should open things up for Dotson, and I like the opportunities have been there, the snaps have been there, the conversions just haven't. But I trust his hands. So that's a player that I think is trending upwards.
Right. There's also like a storm moving up the coast. They're talking about affecting some games on Sunday. We'll see. Keep an eye on the weather, I guess.
Well, I thought that was a metaphor.
I also think that like everybody's talking about
storm headed
Puka
to Pier
Nacua.
1. Yeah.
We're talking about Puka Nacua for good reason. But Tutu Atwell is like buried here. I can't believe he's not getting some more snaps. He didn't find the end zone yet, but if Joe Burrow is healthy on Monday night, like the Bengals pass defense has been stingy, but that offense is due for production. And I feel like because the Rams defense is so bad, Stafford has now passed for 300 yards in back-to-back weeks. And so he could easily be chasing points. Again, a lot of this is assuming that Joe Burrow is on the field, but that Monday night gives him one extra day to get healthy and to get that calf right. And if he could go ham on the Rams, then you can automatically see Matt Stafford like air it out, and Tutu Atwell, the speed piece, like get a bunch of looks and make some big gains. So those are two receivers that I like this week.
Okay, those are a couple good dart throws.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, those are guys you could trade for, but you still need that second back, that RB2.
Still looking for a running back. Trying to find running backs are just hard to come by.
Yeah, and it's hard to trade with the guys in our league. Everybody always thinks you're up to something.
Oh God, everyone is. Is that your leagues too?
You still do the home leagues?
No one trades with you because they're like, well, she knows more than me.
Oh, that happens all the time. Yeah. I just don't like trading. Like if I'm going to be honest about the things that I am too stubborn and frankly not humble enough to admit that I made a mistake. Like, no, this guy's going to turn around. I know what I'm doing. It's going to happen. I'm sticking
to
with
your
him.
guns.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in the league 10 years, and I don't think I traded once.
Well, look at you.
Yeah, I had a lot of offers, but I didn't take any of them. I
Yeah.
just didn't feel like,
I mean, if you look up curmudgeon in the dictionary as a picture of Bernie. So, yeah, I get it that you didn't
Yeah.
trade. Yeah.
I definitely tried to trade with you, and yeah, you're right. I don't think you ever traded with me.
correct.
Guaranteed.
Okay.
Liz, are you still in that league that you won 3 times with your you are? Okay.
Yeah.
How you
And
doing?
that guy's my husband now too.
I'm the father of your
All
children.
right.
He is.
Yeah.
Both things can be true, indeed.
I know. It's fantastic. We'll talk about that on the children's podcast. That's amazing.
He still talks with pizza crust hanging out of his mouth too. So
I'm
Aw.
probably even more so now that he's a
Adorable.
dad and forget it.
It worked for him the first time. He's going to keep that up.
it's great. Yeah, no, I am still in that league. It's fun. They have not changed platforms with me though, so it's always like these past 2 years drafting over there has been like, wait, how do I use this again? Like, what are we using? I got a what grade? They gave me a D on this draft. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Wow.
That sounds
Screenshot
right.
that. Yeah.
That
Liz
sounds
Loza gets a D.
They're never right. Nobody knows anything.
Never, ever. Those teams you feel good about are never any good anyway.
Exactly. When you
Mhm.
draft well, your
Yeah.
your team is terrible.
No, the worst. The worst.
Anyway, it's all about the work you put in during the season, and that's why we're here talking to famous analysts trying to help us out, and hopefully we get a little better.
Yeah. And we don't even know if like the league listens to this or
Oh, they
watches this
listen.
on- they do?
listen. Oh, yeah. I tried to trade down in the draft because I knew we were going to get Saquon, but they knew they were privy to that because of the podcast.
Right.
So they were like, "No, thanks. We know you're taking Saquon. We'll stay back here and pick up." whoever."
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a real
It's the risk you take when you want to be a famous podcaster.
5 foot famous is pushing it. Yeah.
What did you guys do at tight end? I'm curious to hear what your strategy was.
So we went late on tight end, and we have Freiermuth,
The Muth.
the Muth, and we also we picked up we did a nice waiver Musgrave pickup that didn't work out last week. So there we are. I still like Freiermuth. I think I'm going to start him this week. Any advice in that world?
This week I like Zach Ertz a lot
Ertz.
this
Okay.
week. He leads the position in targets and he's second at the
Wow.
position in receptions. I think he has 18 targets so far this season.
Amazing.
And also like I just love like an older dude who's like never saying die. Like he is slow now and I think he's averaging like 6.4 yards per reception, but he is the safety valve for Josh Dobbs, who is going to be steamrolled. Let's be honest. I say this to Giants fans, so don't come at me. The Dallas Cowboys pass rush is incredibly fierce, and I don't know. I think that Dobbs seeing all that in his face is going to make him probably reach towards the middle of the field for a trusted, reliable pass catcher, and that's going to be Ertz. And in full point PPR leagues, like I mean, yardage is great, but if he catches 6 balls and that's maybe you end up with like 8 points out of your tight end, given the
all you
landscape,
need.
you'll take it,
That is all you need. Yeah, I always feel like
For
those
sure.
under pressure quarterbacks or younger quarterbacks rely on those tight ends so much more.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm always trying to. That's why I liked
Musgrave.
Freiermuth and Musgrave. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and also Muth's, the Muth's. He, with Dante Johnson going down, I mean,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
definitely getting more targets. Probably. I don't know how it really works. I just assume that one guy goes down and then somebody else just gets more.
There's nobody else. They don't replace him.
No, I think it's fair. I think Kenny Pickett's just been kind of a mess, but like the matchups have
Yeah.
been tough, and the Browns were breathing down his throat. And George Pickens had like 10 targets in
Oh,
week
yeah.
2, but I think he only caught like 4 balls. Something. It
It's
wasn't
not
great.
efficient.
It's like a 40%.
There was that
40%
one
conversion rate.
drive he caught like every pass. You're like, oh my god, this guy's on fire. But then you look, he was like, that was the only catches.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I mean, Ertz is great. Ertz, I love that call as well. They're definitely. I mean, but at the end of the day, aren't the Cardinals going to just try to lose every game?
No,
That's
I don't
Tom's
like.
theory.
I that is a fine theory for the front office to have, and the front office is probably going to be thrilled. I mean, I would be surprised. This is what Adam Schefter said on the ESPN marathon, and it really did take me a minute to wrap my brain around, because he was like, I don't think it's potential. He said potentially we could not see Kyler Murray all season, because why would the team risk him getting hurt when they could trade him and then end up in a really good draft position in the spring? But these are still players who have like incentives built into their contracts, and they have families that they need to support. So I don't think, and Josh Dobbs, when is this kid ever going to be a starting quarterback again? Like, he's not going out there trying to lose. This is his shot.
Well, they certainly tried to beat the Giants. That game was really uneven at first.
Yeah.
So were they up 21-0?
That was Tom's survivor pick, the Giants. He, under his theory that the Cardinals are throwing every game. It's like, don't worry, they're going to throw it.
And what happened? I was
almost wrong.
They really tested my theory.
Anyway.
Those Giants.
Before we let you go, we've been asking everybody if they have any great memories with, we've been talking about, we're Giants fans. We have these four great Super Bowls in my lifetime. And we were asking every guest about your memories with your dad or with your kids now, football-based, sports-based, any memorable moments, giant high fives, hugs. Yes, Dad?
No, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So this is interesting. My mom was a single mom, but my grandfather, from like a domestic point of view, was my primary caregiver, which is how I grew to love and be knowledgeable about sports. This isn't football related, though those stories exist. The one, though, that immediately comes into mind and I think is very illustrative of my youth was when I was in third grade. He was in charge of like Halloween costumes and ballet recital outfits and all of that stuff. So in third grade, when it was Halloween time and all the kids were picking their costumes, most of the little girls were going to be princesses or Shira, who is dope as hell, by the way. Like, can we bring back
Shira.
vintage
True,
Shira?
true.
She was so cool. I wanted to be Ryne Sandberg. I grew up in Chicago. So all the other little girls were princesses, and I was Ryne Sandberg, second baseman, obviously, for the Chicago Cubs. And fast forward, my son, who plays Little League, his team won their Little League championship at Encino Little League this past spring. And he wears the number 23.
Oh, very cool.
Okay.
Very cool.
Oh, that's amazing. There you go. Full circle.
Yes.
All the way.
I love that story. That's great. And your granddad was a Bears fan?
Yes, Bears fan, Cubs fan, although he was born on the South Side, but he married a North Sider, so he converted.
Oh.
Well, that's cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Blackhawks
that's
fan.
Lovely. And Blackhawks. That's great. And you grew up in Chicago then? They raised you. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Love
And
that.
Is that why you're a sports fan and that's so heavily into?
I mean, dressing up
Or
as
you're-
Ryne Sandberg for Halloween.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
says
That's a
sports fan.
clear sports.
Yeah,
star
I was
trait.
the only child. So, like, I just sort of learned all the things, if we're speaking normatively, which I know we don't do anymore, but like all the things that like a boy would learn.
Right.
Because he was in charge of me. And it was just, I honestly, there were days I didn't want to go to like school, like elementary school or preschool. And he would just be like, let's go to the track.
There
And
we
so
go.
now on Mother's
Oh,
Day,
no,
I take
God.
my kids to the track.
I
you
love
do?
that.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I love this guy.
I think you started betting at an early age with this guy.
Our neighbor, who one of my dad's good friend, was the announcer at the track. Would
That's
call the
amazing.
races. We had the what do they call that? Pocono dance,
Kart racing, right?
the trolley.
what do you
they're on
call that?
They're on the wheels.
Trotters and Pacers.
Trotters and Pacers.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
the
we would
chariot,
go-
the chariot ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we would go and we would go up to the booth and get to hear him call number 4 trade. It was great. It was so much fun. And I lost all of my high school. Well, no, I didn't.
That's where the college money went.
That's for the college.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Liz. We're going to leave on that horrible story about, Jason's
About
corrupted youth.
children going to the track.
Right.
But so great to have you on and give us some advice and share your stories. And look forward to seeing you soon, I hope. See you around.
on
Yeah.
an airplane somewhere in coach.
Exactly.
I think we're due for an outing for sure. We should get it together.
Sounds great. All right. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.